Hi there, I'm Nessa, and yes, my mom actually called me her sponsor during Easter brunch. After everything I'd given them, $28,700 to be exact, they laughed in my face. That day, they handed me a mug mocking me. What they didn't know was that I'd already hit my breaking point. But it gets worse. They didn't just insult me, they erased me from their lives in ways I never saw coming. Why would a family do that to one of their own? Before we dive in, what time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I really want to know. The sky over Nashville was that soft, deceitful kind of blue, like nothing bad could happen under it. We were gathered around the dining table at my parents' home for Easter brunch, pretending to be a family. Someone popped champagne. Celeste giggled too loud. Dad scrolled his phone under the tablecloth. I sat there, sipping orange juice diluted with just enough Prosecco to make it tolerable. I hadn't come because I wanted to. I came because I was expected to. That's what daughters do. Show up, smile, and make small talk while ignoring the elephant tap dancing in the room. Mom raised her glass. "To family," she chirped. Celeste rolled her eyes and added, "To our favorite sponsor." I blinked. Mom laughed and turned toward me, eyes glinting. "You're not our daughter. You're our sponsor." The table erupted in laughter. Even Uncle Bill smirked into his deviled egg. My mouth went dry. I didn't say a word, didn't flinch, but inside something cracked, loud and clean. I stared at my plate while 1,000 unpaid bills flashed in my head. Celeste's rent I covered last winter. Mom's ER bill from her mystery collapse last June. The time I bailed Dad out of a tax mess with a check I had to break my savings for. They laughed because they thought it was funny. I didn't. I felt like I'd just been publicly demoted, stripped of the role I thought I still played. Later, after the ham and hash brown casserole, Celeste came toward me holding a box. "I got you something," she said, syrupy sweet. "A little joke between us." I opened it. A white ceramic mug stared back at me with bold black letters. "Stop asking why, just pay and smile." A few cousins hooted. Mom clutched her stomach, wiping tears. "That's Celeste's sense of humor for you." I held the mug in both hands. My fingers tightened. My jaw didn't move. I forced a grin that didn't reach my eyes. Inside, I was screaming. That stupid mug said everything they never had the guts to say out loud. It was their family crest printed on ceramic. Nessa, the obedient ATM, the fixer, the fool. Last week, I wired $5,000 to fix Celeste's alternator. A month ago, $3,000 for Mom's dental bridge. Every time they cried, I paid. Every time they lied, I forgave. But today, they handed me my own roll, gift-wrapped. I excused myself and walked down the hall, gripping the mug like it might explode. In the bathroom, I sat on the edge of the tub and texted myself the phrase, "They think I'm a joke." I stared at my reflection. My eyes looked hollow. My lipstick was too bright. I didn't recognize the woman who let this go on for so long. This wasn't a fluke. This was who they were, and who they thought I still was. But they were wrong. This would be the last time I let them laugh at my expense. I walked back into the room. I was still Nessa, but something about me had shifted, and they hadn't noticed yet. The mug sat alone in my passenger seat the entire ride home, its slogan facing me like a dare. I didn't touch it again until I walked into my condo, still smelling faintly of Mom's cinnamon-glazed ham. I set the mug in the sink like it might infect the rest of my kitchen. Then I washed my hands, twice. I thought silence would ease the sting, but it clung to me through the night. By morning, I felt no lighter. I brewed coffee, poured it into my usual blue cup, and reached for my phone just as it buzzed with a fraud alert. It wasn't fraud. It was Celeste. A $42 charge from a novelty gift shop 2 towns over. Custom order. The date matched the same day she'd come over crying about being broke. I had added her as an emergency card holder years ago, back when I still believed in family trust. Guess I should have canceled that. I pulled up the receipt from my banking app. One custom ceramic mug, engraved text. "Stop asking why, just pay and smile." It felt like my chest hollowed out in real time. 2 weeks ago, she sat on my couch sobbing, claiming she couldn't afford Easter gifts. I offered to cover a few things. She hugged me, called me the best sister ever. I even gave her gas money. Turns out that whole performance was just the dress rehearsal for my public execution. I stared at the sink again. The mug was still there, a monument to every time I gave too much and expected decency in return. They're not clueless, they're complicit. The words dropped inside me like ice water. 2 days later, I stopped by my parents' house, just for a moment. Mom texted asking for her medication, so I picked it up from the pharmacy and drove over. I let myself in. No one answered when I called out, so I left the bag on the kitchen island. That's when I saw the paperwork. Legal documents. Not hidden, just there, open, staring up at me like a dare. It was a revised will. I scanned the pages quickly. My name never came up, not once. Celeste, though, she was everywhere. Executor, sole beneficiary, real estate transfer pre-approved. Even the dusty old Buick was going to her. I froze in place. For a moment, I just listened. To the sound of the refrigerator humming, to the sound of something cracking behind my ribs. Dad walked in. He saw me holding the papers. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask. I just looked at him. He cleared his throat. That stuff's not finalized. Really? My voice didn't waver. Because it looks pretty damn official. Mom came in behind him. She looked annoyed, like I'd walked into the wrong room at a dinner party. Celeste needs this more than you do, she said flatly. You'll be fine. I nodded, said nothing. Because what could I say that hadn't already been answered with laughter and ceramic? I drove home without turning on the radio. I passed a family at a stoplight, Dad in the driver's seat, 2 kids bickering in the back, and a woman up front feeding fries to everyone. They were laughing. It made my hands tighten on the wheel. How many ways can someone be erased before they stop showing up? When I got home, I opened my laptop, created a new spreadsheet, and titled it, Proof They Never Loved Me. Then I began to type. I reopened the spreadsheet. Row after row of transaction history stared back, cold and indifferent. My fingers hovered over the keyboard before I clicked into one transfer, $10,000, labeled House Emergency, Celeste. The timestamp made my breath pause. It had been a Monday night. Celeste had called, her voice shaking. If we don't send the payment by tomorrow, Mom could lose the house. They're threatening foreclosure. Her sobs were wet and heavy, like she knew just how to deploy them. I remember being in my kitchen, still in scrubs after a double shift, exhaustion clinging to me. I told her I'd call Dad to confirm. She said, "He won't answer. He's ashamed." Then Mom texted me an hour later. "Don't make it worse. Just help us." That was all it took. I wired the money before midnight, and then I cried too, except mine wasn't performative. Mine was real. Now here it was, in print. The revised will was notarized 2 days later. I stared at the scanned copy I'd saved on my desktop. The document's metadata confirmed the edit date, April 19th, 48 hours after I transferred my savings into their hands. They never needed help. They needed me silent. My fingers clenched into fists, knuckles white. The betrayal wasn't spontaneous. It had been scheduled. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya, a friend from the hospital. "Is this about you?" A link followed. I hesitated before tapping it. TikTok, Celeste, filmed in her car, soft lighting, fake tears. "Sometimes," she said, eyes trembling, "people you love treat you like a wallet with no feelings. My sister thinks money is how you earn affection." The caption read, "Toxic Family Wounds." It had over 180,000 views. My heart dropped. The comment section was a tornado. Strangers called me a narcissist, a gold digger, a corporate robot. One woman even wrote, "Some sisters deserve to be cut off." I wanted to scream. She never said my name, but everything else was there. My job, my city, the hospital I worked at. She made sure it was traceable. I sat at my desk, pretending to chart patient data. 10 minutes later, I was in the restroom, locked in a stall, vomiting. The shame didn't just settle in my stomach, it bled through my skin. I looked into the mirror on my way out, mascara barely hanging on. Someone had taken a sledgehammer to my character and put it on autoplay. I opened my camera app. I stared at myself. I didn't recognize the woman blinking back, hollow, humiliated, but still breathing. I hit record. "You won't break me again," I whispered. Then I saved the clip. Private, for now. Something changed that day. I stopped crying and started cataloging. I downloaded every bank statement from the past decade, found old emails, letters I never opened, insurance forms signed without my consent. They hadn't just excluded me, they erased me. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a strategy, a slow erasure wrapped in smiling favors and family prayers. Every warm dinner, every "thanks for covering this," every guilt-smeared request, they weren't asking, they were draining. I stared at the open tabs multiplying across my laptop screen. Every dollar, every favor, every instance I should have said no. I whispered to myself, calm now, cold. It's time I get my name back. I woke up to a phone vibrating relentlessly beside my pillow. Group chats, tags, DMs, my name lit up every corner of my screen. I hadn't even blinked the sleep from my eyes when I saw it. My mother had shared Celeste's TikTok video on Facebook. Not just the video, she added a caption. Cold daughters are the hardest lesson in life. There it was, not a hint of ambiguity, no winking emoji, no sarcastic tone to hide behind, just venom out in the open. She posted it at 2:14 a.m. while the rest of the world slept. My chest tightened. I hadn't spoken to her in days, not since I'd found the will. She hadn't checked in, hadn't asked how I was coping, but she had time to broadcast betrayal to her 400 friends. I clicked the reactions. A flood of comments from neighbors, church friends, even old school teachers I hadn't spoken to since prom. Most said nothing. They didn't have to. The unfriend notifications started rolling in an hour later like quiet little betrayals. Death by 1,000 taps. I stared at her profile photo. It used to be a picture of the three of us at Celeste's high school graduation. Now it was just Mom in a wine-colored dress, smirking with a glass of rosé. She looked proud, like she'd won something. I thought about the morning she used to braid my hair before school, whispering, "Don't let the world make you small." I guess she didn't mean herself. The ache was so specific it didn't even sting. It burned. Later that week, I was pushing a cart through the frozen food aisle at Kroger when I heard someone call my name. It was Jenny, a cousin I barely saw outside of Christmas. She smiled wide, clueless. "I can't wait to see you at Celeste's wedding next month. You're going, right?" My hands froze around the handlebar. "What wedding?" She blinked. "Wait, you didn't get an invite?" I lied. I said, "Must have gotten lost in the mail." At home, I pulled up Celeste's Instagram. There it was, the seating chart, color-coded and floral. My name wasn't just missing. My chair had been reassigned. "To Nicole, my favorite Canadian soul sister," the caption read. I knew Nicole. She was some online friend Celeste had flown in for spring break last year. Apparently, that was worth more than 30 years of sisterhood. Under the post, Mom commented, "So proud of our shining bride." I closed the app. For the first time, I didn't feel confusion or disbelief. Just a chilling clarity. They weren't forgetting me. They were deleting me. So I cried. Not loud, not bitter. I cried because the fog was gone. The wishful thinking, the hoping they'd come around nonsense. All of it dissolved in that cold, fluorescent-lit moment in my apartment kitchen. I opened our family group chat, hovered my finger over the thread, then I deleted it. I scrolled through the saved texts on my phone. Dad asking for a little help with taxes. Celeste whining about her rent. Mom guilt-tripping me into paying for the family reunion t-shirts. Gone. Archived. I was done being the vault they all looted and laughed about later. I turned to my laptop, clicked on the family records folder. I renamed it Evidence. Then I sat back and watched the new name settle on the screen like a seal. It hit me when I least expected it. Over lunch of all things. A friend from work tagged me in a group photo on Instagram. It was from Celeste's wedding rehearsal dinner, posted by someone I didn't follow. The lighting was perfect. Everyone was glowing. But then I saw it. The head table. A place card where mine should have been. Taylor, a stranger. "So sweet of Celeste to invite her Canadian bestie, Taylor," the caption read, sprinkled with emojis and hashtags like #chosenfamily and #rideordie. Taylor, the same girl I once loaned miles for a flight to see Celeste last Christmas. The irony made my throat dry. I stared at the photo for minutes, numb. Then came the flashback. Celeste sobbing into my couch, swearing she couldn't afford the deposit for the venue. I paid it without blinking. And now, I wasn't even a footnote in the event I helped build. I didn't text, didn't rage. I quietly unfollowed, took a screenshot, and added it to my digital folder labeled Erasure. It was the first time I didn't just feel wronged. I started thinking like someone who could document it. The next envelope arrived 4 days later, a thick white one. It looked like a hospital bill, the kind I'd gotten used to seeing from Mom's procedures, but inside was something different. Final notice, repayment on a $9,000 personal loan, servicing agency logo at the top, a due date, threat of escalation. I blinked at it. It had to be a mistake. I pulled my laptop closer and checked every transaction on my accounts. Nothing. No deposits, no loan activity, no record at all. So I called. The woman on the phone was polite. Too polite. Yes, ma'am. You're listed as the primary on the loan file. We even have your original signature from intake. She emailed it to me while we were still on the line. When I opened the attachment, I dropped the phone. It was a scan of the hospital intake forms I had signed months ago, when Mom was supposed to undergo outpatient surgery. I remembered standing in the hallway of St. Vincent's, signing whatever the nurse handed me while Mom clutched her lower back and groaned. I hadn't signed for a loan, but there it was. My name, lifted from a moment of care, twisted into debt. I called my mother. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. It was just temporary. We needed that help. You always say we're family, Nessa. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just hung up. They didn't even need me to say yes anymore. They just needed me distracted, compassionate, predictable, but not anymore. That night, I pulled out the box I hadn't touched in years. Receipts from birthdays, bank slips from emergency transfers, Venmo screenshots, texts asking for help. I sorted them into piles. The whiteboard came next. I dragged it out of the closet, wiped it clean, and started again. Red string, index cards, timeline. There was something satisfying about organizing betrayal. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the clarity. They thought they were playing the long game, I whispered. I was just late getting into it. This time there'd be no warnings, just documentation and consequences. I picked up my phone, tapped a number I'd saved 6 months ago, but never used. Hi, I said calmly. I'd like to schedule a legal consultation. A pause. Yes, I'll bring everything. I have a folder titled Evidence of Financial Exploitation by Family. The light on my desk was low, the kind of glow that catches every ridge of paper and shadow of ink. I stared at the final page of the loan notice again. Really looked this time. There, scrawled above the signature they claimed was mine, sat 5 words that felt like a slap. No repayment needed, family first. Celeste's handwriting, her favorite heart at the end, the same one she'd used to sign birthday cards when we were kids. Except this wasn't a card. This was fraud with flair. My fingers didn't shake, not this time. I folded the page precisely, slid it into a folder labeled Fraud Evidence, and clicked the lock on my fireproof box. There was no more room for interpretation. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. It wasn't desperation. It was deliberate and it was coordinated. They hadn't just crossed the line. They'd redrawn it in glitter ink and dared me to notice. 3 days later, a letter from the DMV arrived. Thick, official, addressed to me. My first thought was registration for my Camry was due. But when I opened it, my breath caught. Insurance renewal for a 2022 Mini Cooper. Not mine. Never was. I checked my State Farm app. There it was. The Mini Cooper, parked virtually next to my Camry like a bad punchline. I clicked through policy history, saw the coverage added months ago. I tapped deeper, accessing the linked loan documents. There it was again. My name, my social security number, my income, my documents. The same ones I'd once handed over to Celeste years back when we tried to co-sign her first apartment. She'd kept them, reused them, built a car purchase under my identity. And guess when? 1 week before her Vegas getaway, the trip she told me was for taking Mom to a specialist. A memory stabbed through. Mom calling from the passenger seat of a car, saying, "Celeste is driving. We're en route to the clinic." She was laughing in the background. I sat very still. No tears, just silence. Then I dialed my attorney. "This isn't emotional manipulation anymore," I said. "It's identity theft." The silence on the other end wasn't shock. It was confirmation. I think he knew where this was going before I did. By nightfall, my focus sharpened into action. I drafted the email carefully. No emotion, no backstory, just bullet points. Subject: formal notification of pending legal review. Attachments: loan scans, DMV records, my ID, side-by-side signature comparisons. The closing line read, "You have 10 business days to respond with a correction or explanation. After that, this will proceed through legal counsel." I didn't CC anyone, just sent it to the two names that mattered: my mother, my sister. The message wasn't for discussion. It was the first stake in the ground. The next morning, my phone rang. A new number. "Miss Owens?" the receptionist said. "This is Vanessa from Richards & Cole. Your attorney asked me to call. We've found something else. You'll want to come in." I was going through my credit card statement on a quiet Thursday night, sorting expenses for my lawyer, when I saw it. Bellagio, Las Vegas, $1,874.22. At first, I assumed it was fraud. I hadn't been to Vegas since my 20s, but the next charge hit harder. Valet service Mini Cooper, plate 9TMN 634. My car. Or rather, the one Celeste registered in my name. I opened Instagram, searching Celeste's profile. There she was, sipping from a champagne flute in a rooftop pool. Caption: finally a break from caretaking. Caretaking. She'd told me she was watching over Mom that week. Canceled a call we had scheduled because Mom was having a bad pain day. My jaw locked. I called the Bellagio. The reservation? Under Celeste Owens. Car registered? The Mini Cooper under Vanessa Owens. Room charges? Settled with a card ending in 0038. Mine. Twist S6. One wasn't just a twist. It was the nail through the center of my restraint. This wasn't some messy family dynamic. This was calculated abuse. "They didn't just steal from me," I whispered. "They spit in my face while doing it." My inbox pinged. Subject line: "Can we talk?" It was from Griffin. I stared at it for nearly an hour before replying. We met the next morning, in a coffee shop neither of us had been to before. Neutral ground. He looked wrecked. "I didn't know how to keep watching this," he said. "I didn't even like you before, but this? It's sick." He slid a flash drive across the table. "It's all on there. Text threads, account transfers, planning screenshots, stuff they forgot to delete." I plugged it in that night. The files were clean, organized, with folders by date. Griffin hadn't just sent receipts, he'd built a timeline. One message from Celeste stood out. "Don't worry, Sis never checks her statements. She's too busy being noble." That line echoed louder than any voicemail, louder than the mug, louder than Mom's captioned Facebook post. They'd built a system around my blindness, my trust. Griffin's voice echoed from earlier. "It wasn't impulsive, it was a long game. Your loyalty was just a convenience." I didn't feel grief this time, just clarity, focus. I forwarded the flash drive contents to my attorney with the subject: updated evidence plus new witness. Then I sat at my desk and updated the timeline I'd built weeks ago. Colored lines connected amounts, excuses, travel dates, and lies. What started as a gut feeling now looked like a war map. Griffin's betrayal of them was the first favor anyone in that family had ever given me. I renamed the folder on my desktop, Backup for Court. And just as I clicked save, my phone buzzed. Celeste, just one word. Seriously? I sat at my kitchen table with nothing but my laptop, a cup of bitter black coffee, and Griffin's USB drive plugged in. The glow of the screen flickered off the window, and outside, a quiet dusk was falling. I opened the folder labeled Messages, clicked on the first file, and there it was. A private chat between Celeste and my mother. Celeste: "We'll keep her sweet till the wedding's over, then she's on her own. Mom: "Don't bring up the money now, let her transfer first." My hands didn't shake this time. No tears, no disbelief. Just silence so dense it felt like it had weight. I scrolled further. Messages about manipulating me. Timing requests with holidays. Guilt-tripping as a tactic. "She'll do it if we mention Dad's blood pressure," one said. "Say Mom's crying," another. Twist S7. One wasn't just betrayal, it was premeditated warfare. They hadn't stumbled into hurting me, they'd mapped it out. I leaned back. a flash of my 12th birthday hit me. Celeste accidentally spilling juice on my cake, Mom laughing instead of scolding. The planning had always been there, hadn't it? This wasn't emotional chaos, I whispered. It was strategic cruelty. No more pleading. No more conversations that ended with me apologizing. They wanted a sponsor. What they were getting now was a creditor. I emailed my attorney. The next day we met. I handed over a neatly organized binder. Each dollar I'd given them, broken down by date, purpose, and method of transfer. Back rent, hospital bills, bailouts, plane tickets, car repairs, everything. Twist S8 locked into place, the financial ultimatum. They had 90 days to repay the $28,700, or I'd sue. This isn't revenge, I told my lawyer. This is recovery. That evening, I drove to my mother's house, the same porch where I'd once stood barefoot at 6, holding a Mother's Day card I made from construction paper and glitter glue. Now I stood with a yellow envelope. I placed it in the mailbox, paused, and looked at the front window. The curtain twitched. Celeste stepped outside. She didn't say anything, and neither did I. We stood there like two strangers linked by DNA and nothing else. She crossed her arms. I stared at her like a project I was done funding. The silence was mercifully short. I turned, got in my car, and started the engine. The envelope remained behind. Inside it, the repayment schedule, legal disclosures, copies of evidence. Outside it, my final message. I drove off, whispering to the windshield, "Now they get to decide how ugly this gets." The envelope arrived in a flat, crisp legal folder, no return address. Just my name typed in bold across the front. Inside, a cease and desist letter from my mother. She hadn't signed it herself. A lawyer had, on her behalf. My mother didn't even have the decency to write the threat in her own words. According to her, I was harassing the family, damaging reputations, threatening emotional distress and financial manipulation. Not a single sentence mentioned what they'd done to me. I set the letter down on my kitchen counter like it was radioactive. My phone buzzed once, an automated message from the post office confirming the delivery of my legal folder to her doorstep. So this was it, the final exchange. I sat down, stared at the legal notice, and tried to summon anger. Nothing came, not even grief, just a hollow sort of fatigue, like my body had finally accepted the shape of betrayal. 16 years ago, I used to sit on that same couch, helping Mom sort coupons while she talked about how family meant sticking together even when it's inconvenient. I guess that sentiment had a statute of limitations. My lawyer asked if I wanted to countersue. Technically, I could have. I had a folder full of forged signatures, altered loan documents, and itemized proof of theft. The case was airtight, but I just shook my head. It's not worth poisoning myself over. Instead, I wrote one final message. Not a threat, not a plea, just a truth. You've weaponized everything I gave you out of love. You will never see another dollar or another day of my peace. I hit send. Then I deleted the thread. Next, I cleared my phone. Celeste, gone. Mom, gone. Griffin, still there. I hovered over his name for a moment, then backed out. Let him stay, for now. Ghosts didn't need blocking, just silence. I sold the car I'd co-signed for them. Took less than it was worth. I didn't care. I wanted it gone. I wanted every physical reminder of my role in their scheme erased. Then, I drove to my father's grave. He hadn't defended me in life, but I still needed to say it. I did everything I could. I placed a single white stone on the edge of the headstone and stood there, letting the wind pull at the hem of my coat. A tear fell, just one. Not out of grief, out of release. A week later, I moved into a new apartment. Smaller, simpler, mine. I bought herbs in little ceramic pots and kept them on the windowsill. I cooked for myself, slow and without guilt. I watched bad sitcoms without texting anyone during the credits. I laughed when I wanted. I slept without checking notifications. Griffin sent a text. I'm sorry. Still. I read it. Didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. One Sunday, I wandered a farmer's market by myself, bought a jar of honey from a woman who reminded me of the grandmother I wish I'd had. The sunlight felt like permission. I didn't win. I didn't lose. But I walked away whole. Some wounds don't scar. They breathe quietly beside you, but they don't bleed anymore.